So when kids are young, you settle into an evening routine, right? You've got your bath time, your book time, and then bedtime. Lots of time in between those nighttime activities for positive physical touch. Well, often as kids get older, though, meaningful physical connections become less of a priority. But my next guest says positive touch is important at all ages. Georgia Anderson is a life coach and former massage therapist who has advice to help parents connect with kids beyond the baby stage. It's great to have you.
Hi.
This is an interesting topic, and one that I think, depending on your personality or your comfort level, might land a little differently. But we've heard research about how important physical touch is for babies' mental and developmental years.
Yes.
You believe that extends beyond the baby years.
Well, we know it extends beyond the baby years, right? Physical touch gives us reassurance about our safety, love, and belonging. And our development, it has a positive impact on brain development. Well, I know we get older, I'm older, but we never stop developing, right? So that physical touch and connection is always important, no matter how old we are.
And when you say physical touch, is this a hug, a squeeze, a high five, some back tickles?
You know, it can be anything. It can be like, Brooke, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
That is a connection that is not a verbal connection that makes something a little bit deeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I
yeah,
it's so good to see you.
Yeah, that feels good. I mean, that opens up a different kind of connection.
Right.
And are you a naturally touchy-feely person, Georgia?
Well, I kind of am.
I am too.
I'm all about the body.
When you talk about this, do you find people that maybe have smaller bubbles or aren't as touchy-feely struggle with this? It has to be a more conscious effort?
Yes, and this has a lot to do with consent as well. And it has a lot to do with getting a feel for how the other person feels. We don't want to touch someone if we notice that they flinch or shy away. We want to really back off and use other techniques that we can talk about.
Some of the other benefits, it can be calming, it can regulate stress and anxiety. You believe it helps parents and kids co-regulate, and this may not be a term that's as readily familiar to people. What is co-regulation?
Co-regulation really means that literally your hearts start beating in sync. And this is a research-driven fact. So when we touch someone and we sit next, or even if we just sit next to them, right? Or if we're in the room, our bodies tend to co-regulate.
It's actually an amazing field of study, and I've only dipped my toe in a few, scholarly-based articles and books, but it's quite fascinating how our bodies are programmed and wired to sync if we're close, if we're connected.
Yes, and our body also keeps the score. I mean, it keeps the score of our physical health. Yeah. But our body keeps the score of our mental health as well.
You believe this really dramatically improved your relationship with your son, this idea of positive touch and co-regulation.
Yeah, and this was before I trained as a massage therapist. But my son was in those preteen years. He was starting to experiment with who he wanted to be, and I was being pretty critical and coming down on him, and we were really developing a wedge between us. I had a friend just say, why don't you quit talking to him and just start touching him at night? Go in and give him a back rub. And I thought, wow, this sounds amazing. I'm going to try it. So I went into his room every night. I didn't say a word. I just asked him, do you want a back rub? And he, yes,
he was
a
up for it.
Person.
Wasn't awkward.
Right.
Because it can be when the teenagers get a little bit older.
But he said, okay. So I just started doing that. Back scratches, back rub, and he started to open up, and I started to become less critical. So I experienced that co-regulation myself. And it was a powerful experience in the healing of that relationship and moving forward together. And now, we're just super close. Of course, he's 40 years old. But at that time, it made a huge difference for us.
Teach us. You say it starts with some preparation on our part as the parents.
Yes. So a couple of ways if you just like to deep breathe, but I'm going to give you, let's do one together.
Okay.
Raise your arms up to your ears. Your shoulders up to your ears and breathe in. A lot of times we hold all our tension here, right? So now exhale. Now, if you do that 3 times, you will find that your heart rate slows down and you're ready more to be co-regulating with someone else.
You're in a place physically to extend that connection. All right, then I approach my child. Consent is important, as you talked about. What would be an opening touch or an opening way I could maybe break that barrier?
Yeah, so, hey, before you turn off the lights, would you like a little back rub?
They say yes, and then what, Georgia?
So then we're just going to rest our hands on them, get them to feel our touch first.
Okay.
So we don't go in hard. We just rest our hands on their body, feel their breath, and see if we can feel their body inhaling and exhaling. So just that by itself is great. You don't have to rub your hands and do massage. just feeling their breath and co-regulating with them is powerful.
Am I talking through this process?
You do not want to be the instigator of the conversation.
Okay.
It's up to the person receiving. If they talk, great, respond. But this is about them. It's not about you.
Okay.
So it's not a time to interrogate. Just hold a muscle. Just hold it, right? Just you grab some skin and just gently hold it, or put your hands on their back and hold it.
So it's a suspended kind of sustained touch.
Yeah, and that's much more calming than a fancy back scratch or a back rub. We want to calm the body and release tension and bring awareness to parts of the body that might be holding stress.
And it doesn't have to be, you say, a formal massage, that if you want to maybe keep it a little lighter, or as you're getting comfortable with, as they're getting comfortable with this, you can just simply like trace letters on their back?
Absolutely. My grandkids love this. So I'll write them a message on their back, and they have to try to figure out what it is. Or I'll draw a picture. I'll trace their name, or I'll write, I love you, and they try to figure it out. And that can be really soothing for a child, as well as taking their mind off their troubles.
And for the non-touchy kind of child, can I
Yeah.
create this same type of connection without so much touch?
You sure can. If they say, I don't want to be touched,
Yeah.
number one, mirror their body position.
Okay.
So if they're laying on the couch, lay on the couch next to them, or lay on the floor next to them, and kind of assume their posture.
Physically.
Yeah. That's a great way to connect. If they're going for a walk, ask if you can walk side by side. If they like to play basketball or shoot hoops, go out and try a few. Do what they like. Do what calms them and makes them happy and makes them feel in flow. Do that with them. And so that's a way of co-regulating physically together.
I think this topic is really interesting. I think, too, as the pace of the world picks up and as we become a little more isolated, even independent, it does take some courage to sometimes break those physical barriers, but we know that positive touch, as the research tells us, is so important. Thank you for the encouragement today. Where can we see more of your work?
Oh, at GeorgiaAndersonCoaching.com.
You do great retreats, helping couples and individuals, too. We'll link you over to her website. Georgia, thanks again.
Thank you.
Great advice for parents, and you heard Georgia say grandparents as well. So go to our website, studio5.ksl.com. We'll link you over to GeorgiaAndersonCoaching.com, too. You can also revisit this conversation if it was helpful and review those techniques or those strategies that Georgia mentioned to make positive touch part of your parenting techniques and part of your home.